Guys, welcome to another episode of our configuration management explanatory series. In this episode, we are going to go over the CM-6 configuration settings. As always, your support is very much appreciated, and a free and easy way to contribute and support this channel is by subscribing to help grow this community. That is, if you haven't done so already. Additionally, don't forget to give the like button a hit or a smash and click on the post notification bell to stay up to date whenever I release new video posts. Thank you, and let's get started. Configuration settings, CM-6. This control requires organization to establish, document, and enforce secure configuration settings for information system component using the most restrictive settings that still meet operational needs. Example, the US GCB, which is the United States Government Configuration Baseline, the CIS benchmark, that is Center for Internet Security Benchmarks, and the STIG, Security Technical Implementation Guides. It also mandates continuous monitoring, control of changes, documentation, and approval of any deviations from these settings. Establish and documentations. So this define and document configuration settings for IT product and component within the information systems. These settings should be based on security requirements and should aim to minimize vulnerabilities by using the most restrictive settings that still meet operational needs and document and define the exceptions of these mandatory settings required. So if there's any deviation, or if the system cannot, or the system team cannot implement any of these recommended benchmark or hardening procedure, it has to be documented as to why, that is the rationale as to why these settings or these benchmarks and the hardening procedure cannot be implemented on a particular system. Deviation. Identify and document any necessary deviation from the established configuration settings. That is exactly what I said, right? If you cannot implement any of these benchmarks, any of this hardening of the system, the network devices, or any devices within the enterprise that needs some sort of a hardening, procedure. If you cannot implement it, then there's a deviation. You have to document these deviations. Moving on. Monitoring and control. Continuously monitor the configuration settings to ensure they remain in compliance. That is, performing some sort of a compliance scans on your system and devices with organizational policies. Control changes to the settings to prevent unauthorized modification. Now, this CM6 configuration settings is selected for all the security control baseline. That is the low, moderate, and high. It is selected for all the baseline. So if your system is a low system, this control is required. If your system is a moderate system, this control is required. And if your system is a high system, this CM6 configuration settings is also required. Now, let's read the security control requirement explanations for CM6 configuration settings in 853 Rep 5. CM6 configuration settings. The control. A. Establish and document configuration settings for components employed within the system that reflect the most restrictive mode consistent with operational requirement using assignment organization-defined common secure configuration. B. Implement the configuration settings. C. Identify, document, and approve any deviations from established configuration settings for assignment organization-defined system component based on assignment organization-defined operational requirement. And D. Monitor and control changes to the configuration settings in accordance with organizational policies and procedure. Now, let's look at the discussion here. Configuration settings are the parameters that can be changed in the hardware, software, or the firmware components of the system that affects the security and the privacy posture or functionality of the system. Information technology products for which the configuration settings can be defined include mainframe computers, servers, workstation, operating systems, mobile devices, input-output devices, protocols, and applications. Parameters that impact the security posture of system include registry settings, account, file or directory permission settings, and settings for functions, protocols, port services, and remote connections. Privacy parameters are parameters impacting the privacy posture of systems, including the parameters required to satisfy other privacy control. Privacy parameters include settings for access controls, data processing preferences, and processing and retention permissions. Organizations establish organization-wide configuration settings and subsequently derive specific configuration settings for systems. The established settings becomes part of the configuration baseline for the system. Common secure configuration, also known as security configuration checklist, lockdown and hardening guides, and security reference guide, provide recognized, standardized, and established benchmarks that stipulate secure configuration settings for information technology, product, and platform, as well as instruction for configuring those products or platforms to meet operational requirements. Common secure configuration can be developed by a variety of organizations, including information technology product developers, manufacturers, vendors, federal agencies, consortia, academia, industry, and other organizations in the public and private sectors. Implementation of a common secure configuration may be mandated at the organization level, mission and business process level, system level, or at a higher level, including by a regulatory agency. Common secure configuration include the United States Government Configuration Baseline and Security Technical Implementation Guide, that is the STIGs, which affects the implementation of CM-6 and other controls such as the AC-19 and the CM-7, which is going to be our next video. The Security Content Automation Protocol, the SCAP, and the defined standards within the protocol provide an effective method to securely identify, track, and control configurations settings. This CM6 control has 4 control enhancements, but 2 has been withdrawn and incorporated into other controls. Enhancement number 1, configuration settings, automated management, applications, and verification. And the second enhancement here is response to unauthorized changes. The unauthorized change detection that has been withdrawn and incorporated into the SI7, and configuration settings, conformance demonstration, also withdrawn and incorporated into the CM4. Moving on, now let's look at some of the importance of configuration settings, the CM6. The CM6 control is essential for maintaining the security posture of the information system. Proper configuration settings help to reduce vulnerabilities by limiting the system's attack surface, ensure consistency in configuration and security control across the information system, and prevent unauthorized changes that could compromise the security of the information system. Now, let's look at the control assessment approach. To ensure the proper implementation and optimal performance of this CM6 control, addressing both the design and operational effectiveness, we take the following steps. Obtain and examine the organization's policy and procedure, the -1 control related to configuration management to ensure clear definitions for establishing, documenting, and maintaining configuration settings has been developed. Next, interview key personnel or stakeholders. Conduct interview with personnel responsible for configuration management, including system administrators, security officers, and members of the Configuration Control Board, that is the CCB. Now, you have to verify the understanding of the CM6 control requirement and their roles in enforcing secure configuration settings. Examine baseline configuration settings. Review the baseline configuration settings established for the information system component. Ensure these settings are based on security standard and best practices, such as the STIGs, the CIS benchmarks, and the USGCB are also documented. Also, identify and review deviations. Identify any documented deviations from the baseline configuration settings Ensure that these deviations are justified based on operational requirement, properly documented and approved by the appropriate organizational officials. Yes, there are instances where, some benchmark or hardening procedure cannot be implemented, but then again, that has to be properly documented and also approved, by the organizational official who's responsible for that or such kind of approval. You have to review that and make sure it is in line with the operational requirement. And finally, evaluate the monitoring mechanisms. That is, you have to assess the mechanism in place for continuously monitoring the configuration settings. Ensures that automated tools such as vulnerability scanners, it could be any of the scanners, Nessus, Qualys, and any other scanner that are available to the environment or the organization, ensure that they are being used to detect and alert on any misconfigured settings and unauthorized changes to the configuration settings or the baseline settings of the system. That's it for this episode. Please do like, subscribe, share, and comment on this video, so the YouTube algorithm will expose these videos to lots of people who could benefit from these videos as well. Our next episode will be on CM-7, that is the list functionality. See you in the next one.